So historically, art and like around the world, but especially in India, has been very religious based. Regardless of what religion the artist belongs to, it has art seems to be like self-expression wise has been expressing their religion and their beliefs in about the world. But some art and architecture, as you know, probably has been created for other reasons. In India, most famously, the Taj Mahal. So here are some pictures that I took when I went to India of various monuments and like temples and places that I visited. And this is some of the art that was like very historical art. They have like carved out images of various gods and deities into the rock, into marble, and created temples. They also, this is all Hindu art, but there's obviously other religions in India that have created their own types of art. And this is also a painting that me and my mom saw at a temple that's very religious also. But here are some examples of non-religious art. This is some like major landmarks in India. Right here is on the top left is the tomb of Akbar, who was a great emperor of like the Mughal Empire a very very long time ago. Um, and they built this huge tomb for him, which is beautiful. And you can go inside and look at it, and they have a lot of like there's a lot of his historical significance and stuff. And then on the bottom left is the Red Fort of Agra. It is a military base, but as you can tell, it is also a great architectural feat. And they have like designs and like paintings and things carved into the stone to make it an art piece as well as a military base. And on the right, as you all can probably recognize, is the Taj Mahal. It is actually a tomb. It was built by Shah Jahan, who was an emperor, for his wife. When she died, he built this huge monument, a mausoleum around her, and it's supposed to be a tribute to his love for her. So as you can tell, there's been like very religious art and also very not like secular, non-religious art for other reasons, to like commemorate a person or even just like a part of life, like a war monument or stuff like that. But like more contemporarily, more recently, art has been changing to fit the political atmosphere. Artists are becoming more of activists, more leaders in their community to speak out against political things that have been happening, like policies that have been being passed and stuff like that. One very famous artist in India, especially in recent times, is Rummana Hussain. She was like a very very famous artist in the 90s. She was born in 1952 to a prominent Muslim family, and she like lived as she practiced Islam like Islam throughout her life, and but it wasn't like a main part of her art. Her art was more political and socially focused. She was considered one of India's first performance artists. So prior to this, most art was very like literary or visual, like paintings or architecture wise, but she was considered one of the first performance artists. So people would come to watch her perform and speak out against political um, decisions. And she began her career working with figurative paintings. I have another example on the next slide of one of her earlier works. And she would, even in those paintings, she would speak out about like, she would speak out politically and about social norms. But after the violence that and protests of the 1990s and the destruction of a mosque in 1992, she changed her focus to be even more politically active. She felt like it was necessary to use art to convey issues central to the human condition, and she believed that art was meant to be accessible to people of all classes. So it shouldn't be only for the wealthy, and it shouldn't only be for the people, like for like literate people or people who could read or access um, like museums and stuff like that. It should be accessible to everyone. So she decided to do performance art to make it accessible to everyone. Um, Here on the top left is an example of her earlier work. As you can see, it's very figurative, um, and it like is very metaphorical. It's not very, it's very symbolic. And on the bottom right is one of her more, like I guess her later works after she decided to be more politically based, and it's a lot less symbolic. It's quite symbolic, but it's a lot less easy to like understand. But it has a lot more of a meaning to the social atmosphere of the time. And as you can see in this picture right here, this is actually her most famous performance art. She had a gourd in her hand, and she cut it in half, and she walked around in circles for, I believe it was for 30 to 45 minutes, just walking in a circle with her mouth open as if she was screaming, but she wasn't making any noise, to show that she has been silenced by whatever political party was in power at the time, and to show that the people have been silenced, women and like religious minorities have been silenced, stuff like that. And she was a big feminist of the time, um, and she was one of the most prominent feminists of Indian society at the time. And even today, like she's still known as a huge feminist icon. And yeah, here are some other examples of her work. She did very minimalistic things, but it had a lot of meaning, and she often collaborated with other artists. The bottom right picture is a collaboration with another Indian artist that she did. It was actually put up in a museum in New York, and her work has been displayed all around the world. Um, I believe the top left is an exhibit in a museum in Chicago, and then the bottom right is an exhibit in New York. Yeah, so she was and still is a very important icon in Indian art and Indian social activism.